Our fans to understand that playing 82 games in the 80s and 90s is not the same as playing 82 games in the 2020s.
When LeBron passes up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in points, and he will this year, will that make him the greatest player ever? Okay.
LeBron James recently made comments on a podcast about how the modern game has evolved. On the surface, his points sounded reasonable. He spoke about differences in pace, skill, and how the league operates today. However, those same comments were interpreted very differently by many former players. To the old school generation, it did not sound like simple analysis. It sounded like a comparison that diminished the toughness and difficulty of earlier eras. That reaction was especially strong from Shaquille O'Neal, a dominant force who won 3 championships alongside Kobe Bryant. From his perspective, LeBron's words crossed a line. What may have been intended as a modern-day observation was heard as a lack of respect for players who built their careers in a far more physical and demanding version of the league. The situation reportedly escalated after a game between the Los Angeles Lakers and the New York Knicks, where tensions carried into the tunnel. According to accounts, the exchange between LeBron and Shaq was far from friendly. It was not a media moment or a playful back and forth. It was direct, intense, and rooted in a deeper disagreement about how basketball greatness should be defined across eras. At the center of this moment is a bigger question that continues to divide fans and players alike. When modern stars talk about how the game has evolved, are they simply acknowledging change, or are they unintentionally dismissing the struggles of the past? For veterans like Shaq, who experienced the physical battles of earlier decades, that distinction matters. And when it feels like that history is being overlooked, the response is not going to be quiet. Understanding the situation requires stepping back and looking at the full context. LeBron's comments were not made in isolation. They are part of an ongoing conversation about how different generations view the game. But as this moment shows, those conversations
Pissed off about, at some point, like you said, there'd be a conversation that'd be brought up again, and hopefully we can kind of figure it out and get to a better place about it, because the game is different. Like, I want people to understand, and our fans to understand, that playing 82 games in the 80s and 90s is not the same as playing 82 games in the 2020s. It's just not. The way we play, the level of pace, the level of the speed that we're playing at, it's a different game now. It's a totally different game. And, it's a lot of soft tissue injuries that's happened now because of it. I hope we can get a handle on that as well, because that's big in our game.
The LeBron James made comments on a podcast about how the modern game is different, reasonable on the surface, but interpreted very differently by old school figures in basketball. Shaquille O'Neal, a 3-time champion alongside Kobe Bryant, reportedly reached a breaking point after hearing those remarks. What followed in the tunnel after the Lakers-Knicks game was far from polite. The situation has sparked debate among fans. Were LeBron's comments genuinely disrespectful to the era of Michael Jordan, or was Shaq simply overreacting to something taken out of context? To understand the tension, it is important to go back to the full context. The Los Angeles Lakers had just lost to the New York Knicks 112-100. It was not a historic defeat or a total collapse, just a typical regular season loss that would normally be forgotten by the next day. However, this game carried more weight than the scoreboard suggested. Beneath the surface, there was already tension building before the final buzzer even sounded. Earlier, LeBron has appeared on a podcast where he discussed the evolution of basketball. Some of his comments, particularly about the modern game being faster and in some ways more demanding, began circulating quickly. These remarks reached circles within the basketball world known for their deep respect for past eras and their sensitivity to any suggestion that today's game might be harder than before. As a result, what might have seemed like a simple observation turned into...
First came into the league, Reese, some of the biggest concerns of injuries was a high ankle sprain. You was afraid to step on somebody's ankle because there was 4 or 5 guys sitting in the paint. So, guys with athleticism, myself, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, to name a couple guys, sometimes you're afraid to take off into the lane because there was 4 or 5 guys sitting in the paint. And if you land on somebody's ankle, you get a high ankle sprain, you out 4 to 6 weeks. Now, that's not really much of you don't really see that as much now because the game is so spread open, it's so much pace. But now you see the new high ankle sprain is the calf.
Right.
So, hopefully we can get a handle on that from a medical standpoint. But it's just a game. I just want the fans to understand that the game is a little different. And, as NBA players, we definitely want to.
The specific clip that sparked the entire reaction came from LeBron James discussing how the game has evolved physically. He explained that calf injuries today are similar in significance to what high ankle sprains used to be in earlier eras. His point was tied to how the modern style of basketball, built around pace, space, and constant movement, places different kinds of stress on players' bodies. From a technical standpoint, his argument was rooted in sports science. The modern game involves more sprinting, quicker changes of direction, and continuous motion, which can put increased strain on specific muscle groups like the calves. On the surface, it came across as an analytical observation, the type of explanation you might hear from trainers, medical staff, or performance experts studying how basketball has changed over time. However, while the comment was framed in a scientific and modern context, it did not land that way for everyone. For many from older generations of the game, it sounded less like analysis and more like a comparison that minimized the physical challenges they...
Hold on. You said LeBron James the greatest player ever?
Ever.
What about Michael and Kobe? So you just gonna pass Kobe up like that?
I'm gonna pass Kobe up. I'm gonna look at Michael. I'm gonna look at the. I'm gonna look at that.
I know it. Patron America.
Yo.
Patron America.
Kobe Bryant couldn't fill, or Michael Jordan fill LeBron's shoes. The impact that he's had with different teammates, different organizations.
Would you be mad at me if I just walked off the show?
But that is not how Shaquille O'Neal heard it, and he was not alone. Many players from earlier eras interpreted LeBron James's comments very differently. Instead of hearing a sports science explanation, they heard something deeper, an attempt to redefine what toughness means. To them, it sounded like an argument, intentional or not, that the modern game is harder in ways the old game was not. For players who came up in a much more physical version of the league, that framing did not sit well. This was a generation that played through hand-checking, absorbed elbows in the paint, and competed in an environment where physical intimidation was part of the game. The rules allowed more contact, and players were expected to endure it. Compared to that experience, today's game, with stricter foul rules and greater protection for players, feels fundamentally different. So when they hear modern challenges being described as harder, it can come across as dismissive of everything they had to fight through. That is why the situation escalated after the loss to the New York Knicks. As LeBron made his way through the tunnel, Shaq was already there waiting. According to reports from those on site, this was not a casual interaction or a quick exchange in passing. Shaq positioned himself directly in LeBron's path, making it clear that this was going to be a real conversation, not something brushed aside. The image itself said a lot. A 7-foot, 300-pound figure standing firm in a narrow tunnel is not subtle. It signals intent. It signals urgency. And most of all, it signals that whatever needed to be said was not going to wait for a press conference or a TV set.
Hold on. You said LeBron James the greatest player ever?
Ever.
What about Michael and Kobe? So you just gonna pass Kobe up like that?
I'm gonna pass Kobe up. I'm gonna look at Michael. Kobe Bryant couldn't fill, or Michael Jordan fill LeBron's shoes. The impact that he's had with different teammates, different organizations.
Would you be mad at me if I just walked off the show?
You can't leave.
Are you aware that this man has tripled and doubled Michael Jordan in assists?
I'm gonna say one thing to you, and Max. I don't know the numbers like you do. Michael Jordan is what in the finals? 6 and what?
Oh.
And what is LeBron in the finals? That's all I got.
What exactly was said in that tunnel is still unclear, with details continuing to emerge from different witness accounts. But the bigger point, something Shaquille O'Neal has been emphasizing for years, suddenly felt more urgent in that moment. His argument goes far beyond a single incident, a podcast comment, or even one tough loss. It speaks to a deeper idea about what greatness in basketball used to look like. According to Shaq, greatness wasn't defined only by stats like points, assists, or championships. It had a different texture, one built around psychological dominance. The truly great players didn't just outperform their opponents, they controlled them mentally. Michael Jordan didn't just beat teams, he made them feel before the game even started that winning wasn't an option. That belief carried through every possession and lingered even after the final buzzer. Kobe Bryant carried that same presence, his intensity, his focus, and his refusal to let opponents feel comfortable created constant pressure. It wasn't just about skill, it was about mindset. The stare, the obsession, the relentless competitiveness, these weren't just traits, they were psychological weapons. Opponents didn't just prepare physically for players like Jordan or Kobe, they had to deal with the mental strain as well. Even when those players didn't have the ball, their presence alone demanded attention and created anxiety. Teams weren't just trying to execute their game plan, they were trying to manage the pressure and fear these players generated. That's the core of Shaq's argument. True greatness once meant controlling both the physical and mental sides of the game, and that psychological edge shaped...
You playing? I didn't hear you. No, I just think that, we play in different eras. He's an unbelievable player. Yeah, he's one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world. I know it's a natural tendency to compare eras to eras, and it's going to continue to happen. I'm a fan of his. I love watching him play. But it's, as you can see, our league is starting to expand on very talented players. And, I think he's made his mark. He will continue to do so over a period of time. But when you start the comparisons, I think it is what it is.
What was said in that tunnel is still being pieced together through witness accounts. But the moment gave new urgency to an argument that Shaq has been making publicly for years. His perspective goes far beyond a single podcast comment or one tough loss. It speaks to how greatness in basketball used to be defined. According to Shaq, greatness wasn't just about stats like points, assists, or championships. It had a certain presence, a psychological edge. Players like Michael Jordan didn't just defeat opponents. They made them believe before the game even started that winning was impossible. Kobe Bryant carried that same mentality, using intensity, focus, and relentless pressure as weapons that affected opponents mentally, not just physically. Shaq's argument is that LeBron, despite his incredible physical ability and statistical dominance, has never created that same level of fear in opponents. You don't hear stories of players losing sleep before facing LeBron the way they did with Jordan. You don't see the same level of emotional or mental breakdown from opposing teams. For Shaq, that difference isn't minor. It's the defining line between being great and being the greatest. He often points to Jordan's perfect finals record as proof: 6 appearances, 6 championships, and 6 finals MVPs without a single loss. That level of perfection under maximum pressure is, in Shaq's view, nearly impossible to argue against. LeBron's supporters, however, present a strong counter-argument. They highlight his longevity, consistency, and ability to dominate across different eras, teams, and systems. LeBron's career has stretched over 2 decades at an elite level, something no player has ever done before. While Jordan's peak was unmatched, it didn't last as long, and he stepped away from the game multiple times. LeBron's sustained excellence and record-breaking statistics represent a different kind of greatness, one built on endurance and adaptability. But Shaq pushes back on this by saying accumulation of stats over time is not the same as peak dominance. To him, simply playing longer and collecting bigger numbers shouldn't outweigh the impact of a player who was